Next, we're going to talk about Actinobacillus lignieresii, which is the cause of wooden tongue in cattle. This is a normal member of both the oral and rumen microbiota, so it's something that's found in the mouths and stomachs of perfectly healthy cows, doesn't always cause a problem. Disease tends to be sporadic, and it occurs when animals have access to abrasive feeds. So they eat something which perhaps scratches or cuts the inside of their mouth, providing an opportunity for the organism to invade and set up an infection in an otherwise sterile tissue. In cattle, this disease is called wooden tongue. That's sort of the colloquial name. We can scientifically refer to it as glossal actinobacillosis. Animals who have this condition salivate excessively and may have difficulty eating. The tongue is swollen and hard and can also be quite painful. Nodules can be seen developing on the tongue, which typically contain purulent material, and in some cases may also be ulcerated. So you may see ulcerations on the lingual surfaces. While the tongue is sort of the classic site of infection, we can certainly see infections in other body sites as well, including the lymph nodes and other tissues around, particularly the head and neck. One thing that clinically I think is sort of interesting and can help you differentiate Actinobacillus lignieresii infections from other types of infections is that the purulent material exuding from these abscessed lesions is generally not malodorous, so it doesn't stink, while many other infections in cattle certainly do have a very potent smell. Management of this disease is about ensuring access to high quality feed. So you want to avoid thistles, foxtails, anything sharp and pokey that's going to damage the inside of the mouth. In sheep, we can also see these infections, and lesions in this species typically occur on the face and lips. They present as large nodules, which may ulcerate, and it's reportedly implicated in cases of cud dropping, where the animals are eructating feed from their rumen, and then instead of chewing it as they normally do, they can be dropping those materials onto the ground. And in these animals, you'll see green-stained lips. This is an image of a cow tongue with granulomatous glossitis caused by Actinobacillus lignieresii. And what you can see is this sort of nodulated and ulcerative surface of the tongue. So these sort of dark and bumpy lesions all over the surface are highly abnormal. It's important to know this purple color here is actually a treatment that was applied to the animal. So this discoloration is not associated with the disease itself. In this image here, you can see a draining abscess on the ventral surface of a cow's head caused by Actinobacillus lignieresii. So it's not always on the tongue or inside the buccal cavity. It can make its way out and be an externally visible lesion. Actinobacillus equili is found in the reproductive and intestinal tracts of horses, and it causes a variety of syndromes. In our neonatal foals, we see an acute, so quite rapidly progressive, and potentially fatal sepsis. And in fact, in horses under 2 years old, sepsis is very, very common, and the organism is most commonly recovered from the blood or potentially respiratory tract infections as well. Sepsis is associated with embolic spread, so the organism is in the bloodstream, it makes its way to distant tissues and is able to set up infections all throughout the body. So we can see infections of the kidney, the lungs, lymphoid tissues anywhere in the body, the liver, and also septic arthritis. We don't know exactly where this organism comes from, but it's certainly reasonable to posit that it may be an ascending infection from the umbilicus. In these images here, you can see some pathological lesions associated with embolic spread of A. equili. On the left, we have a horse kidney with this sort of multifocal to coalescing glomerulitis. I think you can appreciate these multiple white spots of perhaps coagulative necrosis all over the kidney. And then on the right, we have multifocal pneumonia. So there's multifocal to coalescing hemorrhagic lesions, which can be seen on the cut surface of this lung. In this study from the Journal of Veterinary Diagnostic Investigation, researchers described the body sites from which Actinobacillus species were isolated from horses, either ante-mortem, so those animals that were found alive, or on necropsy. And what was really interesting is there's a different distribution of sites where the organism was recovered. So antemortem, the respiratory system, was most common. So pneumonia is going to be by far the most commonly seen syndrome. We also saw it in the uterus, so potentially associated with abortions, and then a variety of other sites, perhaps reflecting embolic spread. On necropsy, so those animals who didn't make it, culture results were indicative of septicemia. So perhaps recovered from multiple tissues, recovered from the blood, etc. This would be a much more severe infection than more of a focally located pathological process, and perhaps more difficult to treat. Animals seem to be predisposed if they have failure of passive transfer, so they don't receive adequate colostrum from the dam, or if they have concurrent infections. And perhaps the degree of either one of these two risk factors may help to explain whether or not the animal develops fulminant septicemia and dies, or has a milder form of disease that is treatable. Treatment of E. equili infections in horses relies heavily on antimicrobials and supportive care to keep the animal stable. In this image here, you can see Actinobacillus equili on cytology from an equine lung with a large number of rod-shaped bacteria. Actinobacillus suis can be difficult to differentiate from E. equili phenotypically in the lab. So if you have two cultures, they can look very, very similar. One key differentiating factor in the history would be the species from which it's isolated. So Actinobacillus suis has only really been reported to affect pigs. This is an opportunistic infection that affects high health farms, so those which have well managed all of their other disease issues. In piglets, we see septicemia and arthritis, and in older pigs, we see pneumonia, meningitis, and abortion. In this image here on the right, you can see fibrinonecrotic hemorrhagic pleuropneumonia. So particularly this section of the lung here below this cut mark is very congested, it's very reddened, and I think you can appreciate just how abnormal this is. The lesions produced by E. suis, particularly in older pigs, can be indistinguishable from those caused by Actinobacillus pleuropneumoniae. Specimens to collect, really it's going to depend on what type of infection you're dealing with. So purulent materials or exudates, biopsies from lesions, lung samples, or tissues collected at necropsy. So do you have a living animal that you're trying to treat, or do you have an animal that's died as part of an outbreak in a larger herd? Of course, if you want to culture these organisms, it's important not to freeze the samples. Culture is possible for all of the species we've discussed today, and all will be able to grow on blood and McConkey. Some species are more fastidious and require chocolate agar. Again, chocolate agar doesn't actually contain chocolate. It has lysed red blood cells as opposed to intact erythrocytes that we see in our nice bright red blood agar. Our Actinobacillus species are carboxyphilic, so they grow better in a CO2-enriched atmosphere. And microscopy can be very, very useful. So making smears of exudates or looking at lesions histologically can be really helpful for identifying granules in pus or on histological sections. One helpful trick for visualizing these granules is to use a KOH prep, so potassium hydroxide, which will dissolve host tissues and make those granules more visible. And as in many of the organisms we've talked about throughout this class, PCR or other nucleic acid amplification tests can be useful in identification. Actinobacillus species are not a major zoonotic concern. They tend to have a fairly narrow host range. So the scenarios where we would see human infections include things like animal bite wounds or needle stick injuries, where somebody has collected a sample from an animal and then accidentally poked themselves with that contaminated needle. When treating Actinobacillus infections, it's really important to know that we do not have susceptibility test methods for species other than APP. So for Actinobacillus pleuropneumoniae, we have good guidelines for conducting and interpreting tests. For other species, we do not. So these tests need to be interpreted with caution. For Actinobacillus lignieresii, oral iodine solutions are used topically, and we can use systemic sulfonamides and penicillin. Actinobacillus equili, Our treatment is really going to depend on how sick our patient is. So septic foals need to be treated incredibly aggressively. I strongly encourage you to consult an equine medicine textbook. There's some well-recognized adverse drug reactions that you need to be aware of when treating neonates, such as the fluoroquinolones, which we don't use in order to avoid arthropathies. We have just a couple of new terms today, and of course, some questions for self-assessment.